Okay, the first thing we need to do is obtain leather, and that can be done a number of ways. You can find a cow in a random field, chase it, attack it, skin it, and get some of that nice leather, and then learn how to tan it and cure it and all that stuff, and bam, got yourself some leather. So that's one way to do it. But I haven't tried that way probably in a long time. I'd say an easier way is to, you can just go order bulk leather, but that stuff is expensive. The easy way is, there's a few easy ways. Numero uno. And that works not so bad. You can get it by the pound and or half a pound or whatever. Another way that I really like, bam. Now this is like my favorite way, and you can find really great leather, all different colors, just maybe a couple bucks. You can cut it up and get a whole bunch of stuff out of that. Now there's a couple problems with that. First of all, you want to make sure it's real. How do you know it's real? You gotta kind of get used to it after a while. It tends to be less uniform. It tends to have fuzzy. If you can find the backside, you'll find fuzziness on the back and hair, little hairy things sticking out. It feels more like skin than like material, but you just got to get an eye for it. And you can use faux leather too for this. It's not as strong, but sometimes it looks just as good. The big problem is a lot of this stuff in purses is thin, really thin, and you got to layer it up or this stuff is just too floppy. Best to start for men is belts. Belts are already thick. They already have a cool pattern in a lot of them, and most of them are still faux leather. But if you're lucky and you look at enough thrift stores, you can find some of these real leather belts. The belt is the easiest way. I have a couple videos on this from last year, but they're so old now. You can try to find them. I bet you can. But I'm gonna go more in depth here than even on those videos. So basically, you just want to cut enough of the belt to have it be able to wrap around a wrist and overlap about an inch or 2 centimeters, because that's where you're going to put the snap or the fastener or whatever. Now in a previous video I said, you can cut a hole on each end and put a jump rings and a lobster clasp. You can do that, but that's not quite as rough and masculine as the two other ways I'm going to show you now. So I'm just going to measure this on me and got it right about there. Give it a cut. You're going to need some really strong scissors for this. Where are my industrial scissors? You can use regular scissors, but I mean, they're going to take a beating. So anyway, let's just work with these guys for now. Muscle through it. My fingers are going to be so buff after this video. So anyway, let me take this bracelet off. Let's go with this cool guy. Let's measure it again, make sure. Now if you have a man, then you can measure on the man's wrist. If it's a gift and you want to surprise him and you can't, there's ways you can sneak up on him in his sleep and take a measuring tape and go around his wrist. Or you can like casually say, hey, can I measure, so he doesn't get caught off guard, like offer to measure his forehead and his neck and his ankles, and just eventually work your way to his wrist and just be like, I'm in a measuring day. Look, I'm measuring my own wrists and my ankles, and I just want to get a feeling for people's wrists and ankles. Now I'm going to round the edge, because that's, and if it's hard to cut, you don't need to totally round it. You can just kind of angle it off in a geometric shape. Men like that rough, uneven stuff, because men believe if it's too perfect, then it's not manly. Here we have a cuff. Boom, you're good. First of all, you're going to want a hole puncher. Definitely want a hole puncher. You can get these between 10 and 20 bucks, but you want an industrial strength hole puncher that has the different holes. You ask yourself, which size hole do I need for this? And the answer is usually start out with the smallest and then work your way down into bigger and bigger ones until you find the one that fits just right. Because you can always go bigger. If you start with the biggest one and then you find that's too big, you can't go smaller, obviously. So there's snaps that you can get there's 4-part snaps where you have 2 parts for one side that come together, and you either squeeze them with a special pair of pliers or you hammer them with a special type of attachment. But it's so much easier and less expensive and pretty much holds almost better than most snaps is to get these guys, and they're just like a little tiny knob that pokes up through the hole and screws in on the other side, and that little knob can be used to clasp onto the leather bracelet. And you can also put a bunch of holes, so then you can clasp the knob to different places, making the bracelet basically any size you want. You could have it like 5 different sizes. I just got these, a whole bunch of them. I'm gonna open them up. And they're super easy. You basically take this side, poke it up through the hole, take the knob side, put it down over, and screw it on. It's like so crazy easy. If you want to make it extra tight, which you should, you can get a screwdriver or any flat piece of metal, like a pair of scissors or something, anything that you can hold this side down while you tighten the other side. And you can hold this side with a pair of pliers. Now, these are not pliers you want to use for jewelry usually, but in this particular case, they have teeth, so that's actually better. And so, make that extra tight. Okay. Now, as mentioned before, you go to try it, and oh, that hole's not big enough, so you go for your next hole. And still not fitting. Go for the next one. Oh, still not fitting. In this case, you can take a razor blade and make a little slit after the hole to open it up some more, or you can take your hole puncher and voila. So now let's give it a shot. Here is our first cuff, and this is the size. Let's see if it fits me. There we go. Okay, just right. So, as you can see, I've instantly become like 1,000 times more stylish, and will probably be allowed in any club or venue without paying a cover charge once they see this amazing wristwear. And this is what you want to do for any man you know as a gift, or for any reason at all, or if you're selling in a place, in a venue where men might walk by who might have money, who might want to have amazingly attractive wristwear. Now let's go into, this is the simplest one, is just cut a belt. You can get more fancy ones, or if you don't have a cool belt. And this is just a pound of scrap leather that you can get for a few bucks, and it's worth it, because out of this 1 pound you could probably make, if there's some good pieces in here, which there probably are, you could probably make like 20 bracelets. Like I said, thick leather is better. There will be some thin leather sometimes mixed in, so you want to go for, try to find the, like this stuff is almost as thick as that belt I just used, so this is going to be great. But if you have thinner leather, you can do layers. Unless you have an industrial sewing machine, don't put a regular leather pieces through your regular sewing machine. You will probably break the needle and maybe break other parts of it. But an industrial sewing machine, which used to cost a lot of money, but I've seen some low price ones show up, so check those out maybe on Google or YouTube if you know how to use a sewing machine. If not, never fear. There's very simple attachments you can use to put a whole bunch of pieces of leather together. So let's say first I like to start with the shape of my leather cuff, which is going to be close to the belt shape, right? And then I might use leather pieces, and the way I go about this could be any particular way. It doesn't have to be anything special, but these pieces are going to overlap, and let's say, if you could see behind, the overlap would be right there. You're going to punch some holes, and then you're going to put some metal attachments here, and this could, you know, be this way all the way down. And these metal attachments not only hold very well, just like heavy-duty stitching would, but they look cool, and they can look cooler than stitching, depending on what you like. And also, they're a lot cheaper and easier. At the end, you would put your snap or your attachment or whatever connects it. In this case, we're using the knob and hole technique. So we have our knob, and then you can put like 3 different holes to have different sizes. And you can use a ton of tiny pieces of scrap leather and still come up with bracelets. So you don't have to have big pieces. This is just basically, I make a bunch of random 4-sided shape. I make a bunch of these that will kind of fit together and alternate the colors, black and brown. Pretty much men just like earth tones, black, brown, tan, black, brown, tan. That's pretty much it. You deviate from that and you might scare the men. So just try to stick to that. The part on the end, I'll round it so it's a little bit like that belt shape. And voila. Now, these will overlap, obviously. Granted, that's not the only, you can do a million different patterns. You can have 2 long pieces. If you only have long, skinny pieces, you can double them up like this, and then you can put a piece at the end like that with your connector. These can overlap like that, and you can have the rivets or the eyelets. I didn't even tell you the names of those yet. The 2 basically I use are eyelets and rivets. Eyelets look like this, and they're one shot and you're done. You punch a hole, you put them in, and then use these special pliers to crimp them, and this part goes through the hole and spreads out, and they leave an actual hole you can see through, which is kind of cool. And then the other one is rivets. Rivets are 2-part. One side will look like this, and the other side will look like that. And you put the leather in the middle, punch the hole, and this side goes into this side. And these are easy because you don't need any special tools at all. They kind of snap together, but then they're kind of wobbly. So you snap them together, and then you put them in between 2 pieces of metal. It doesn't even have to be a hammer. And you hammer them, you smush them. And it's made of fairly soft metal, so it's strong enough to hold the leather, but once they're smushed together, the metal kind of merges into itself, and they're almost impossible to remove at that point unless you really get some pliers in there. And basically the point is they're not going to fall off. So those are both cool, eyelets and rivets, and you can order them both on Amazon, on eBay, on Etsy. Just try to find them low, inexpensive. Again, I almost always use this antique brass color, which is like a dull yellow, greenish, brownish metal. It basically looks like tarnished brass, and it's basically men's favorite color because it goes great with all the brown, tan, and black, which are the only colors that don't scare men away. There you have it. Let me make some. Before I do that, let me go completely out of order, and 3/4 of the way past this video should be over. Let me tell you what your supplies should be. So basically, you're going to want your hole puncher, and you want to get a strong industrial one that has like the wheel with all the different sizes. It's pretty standard. I think it has 6 sizes, and that's pretty much it. But that's the one you want to get. You want to get leather. I talked about that earlier. You want to get rivets or eyelets. Rivets or both. I would try both because they're both fun, and you can use them both in the same piece. And now if you get eyelets, you need an eyelet pliers. I don't know if that's what they're called, but that's what I call them. And basically, oh, sorry, I'm writing off of screen. That looks like this. You put the eyelet in there and squeeze, and it clamps it, and it attaches it. Pretty easy. And I mean, these are not expensive. These are like $7, $8, $9 at the most. What are the names of these? Hardware accessory. Oh, it just says hardware accessory. I'm gonna call them, you guys will probably find the correct name for me, and I appreciate that. But I'm gonna call them leather knob accessory. You want that, and or you want snaps. Now snaps can be the expensive ones. Snaps look cool, snaps are fun, but they're tricky because generally they come in 4 parts. So you got to buy all 4 parts. There's these 2 parts, and then there's these other 2 parts. You either want to buy an entire kit that comes with the pliers, or you want to buy an entire kit that comes with the, I forget what this long metal piece is called, but there's a long metal piece and a flat metal piece, and basically this part you hammer, and this is the leather, and the snaps go in between here, and you hammer that in between that, and that makes the snap parts come together. So, as you can see by my amazing diagram. All right. Hopefully this is not going to be a half-hour long video, because it's very simple and fun. Actually, these are some of the funnest things to make, because it's super freeform, and leather, it's really easy to work with. It's fun. Oh, one more thing. Industrial scissors. Now, don't spend a fortune. You can get industrial scissors for like 12 to 14 bucks. But any kind of scissors that are listed as heavy duty or made for heavy materials at like a Joann Fabrics or Michaels or anything, like, don't use dollar store scissors or paper scissors. I mean, you can if you're in a jam, but you're gonna have to push really hard, and you're gonna hurt your hand, and if you're cutting a lot of pieces, it's just not worth it. It's not fun. The industrial scissors just cut through like butter. So that being said, let me finally make some pieces. Okay, so here's an example. You can do it any way you want. There's no rules. I like to keep somewhat of a pattern, so notice I'm using the 3 colors that don't terrify men. It's black, this is dark reddish brown, tan. Black, reddish brown, tan. Black, you know. And they also overlap in the same direction, which is kind of nice, because men like a sense of pattern too. They don't want total chaos. You can get crazy glue gel, that's another thing, another supply, but you don't need it, but it can help. The super glue gel, you get like 2 of them at the dollar store. The green one, I'd show one if I had it here, but again, not prepared. But you can, I would overlap them about a centimeter, and you can put the glue down and then put something heavy on top, let it sit for about 20 minutes, and then you can use the metal attachments. Or if you don't have it like me, you can just pick up the pieces, hold them in place, punch the holes, and put the metal attachments on, and not worry about it being perfect. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you first the eyelets. The eyelets, I use the biggest hole. So I'm just going to pick up these 2 like this. You know, make sure I have enough overlap. And you'll get better at this as you practice. So, you know, make a whole bunch of them. Have fun. Make sure your hole went through both. I'm not sure that did. Give it another good punch and twist it. If not, there we go. See that hole? And always put at least 2. Unless you want, you can put 1, but then it's going to pivot. Your piece might not stay where it is. If you put 1, then your pieces could pivot if you don't have glue. But, you know, maybe you like that. Maybe you want your bracelet to be like kind of snakish. I don't know. So here's these. Here's some really colorful eyelets. All different colors, but I'm just going to pick out like the antique brass ones so as not to terrify any male who might try this piece on. So it's super simple. You just cram it in there and make sure it kind of pops out the bottom at least a tiny bit. And then you get these special pliers. Again, they're only needed for this particular thing, the eyelet, and you squeeze the crap out of it for a second, and you'll notice that it's kind of hard to tell in this one, but the little back part, the pieces kind of fan out. Now they'll fan out more when I hit it with the hammer. So let's do the other one, get the other one on there, hammer the back part, because that's the part you're not going to see. That's the part you actually, if you use thin leather, these things can kind of scratch a little, and you want to hammer them down so they press into the leather and they never scratch anyone. But that piece is tight now. That's held in place. That's not going anywhere. Where's my little baby anvil? There she is. I stole it from some Keebler elves. Now, you never want to hammer on a plastic table like this, but these are very light taps, and I'm just going to demonstrate for you so I don't have to reset up the camera. And that's it. For these guys anyway. Otherwise, I would take this, put it down on a concrete step or like a tile floor or something with a piece of cloth underneath. You know, somewhere where it's very strong and stable, but you're not gonna scratch or crack anything. And you do the rest of them. Here we have our happy little bracelet. It looks like some kind of Frankenstein snake. And make sure you switch to a smaller hole when you go to put the other piece on. This is going to be our attachment part, that little knobby thing. And I punched 2 weird holes, so I have 2 different sizes. So let's see if this guy fits. Da-da-da. Oh yes, it fits very comfortably in the first hole and very comfortably in the second. I like the second a little better, but someone with a slightly bigger wrist from lifting more, you know, tipping more cows or whatever people do to get big wrists, they might like that hole. Okay, so anyway, success. Let's try another one. Here's a simpler pattern, longer pieces. I'm going to use rivets this time. I'm going to show you these little guys. These are tiny ones. You might want to get them a little bigger than this. How big do you want them? Depends how thick the leather is. I suggest, I mean, these guys don't cost that much, even if you buy 100 of them. Just try a few different sizes. Get an assorted pack maybe and see which ones you like best. And then they're measured usually by the millimeter. This might be like 5 millimeter long and 4 millimeter wide. And, you know, again, you could glue the leather first if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that because I'm just lazy. And just hold them together. Make sure you have enough of an overlap. Get your hole in there. Sometimes both sides will look the same, and this particular one side has like a little hole to it. It almost looks like an eyelet, and the other side is like a knob. So I'm going to decide I want this side to face up. It really doesn't matter because you'll see. And we put them together. Here's the other. See, it should, that little knob should pop out a little bit, but not too much. So then we put them together. Hear a little pop when they, well, you didn't hear it, but I felt it with my fingers. So that's when you know they're connected. They're connected, but you want to go a little bit further with it, and that's where you want to put it down on your metal piece. You can get a baby anvil like I did, but you don't need a, so you could just get a little piece of metal, whatever, and any, you know, any hammer. You just give it a few. These rivets are really soft metal, so a few good taps. So that's, you see what that side looks like. That's cool. And there you go. And congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Leather. It's another cuff bracelet. And just like all the others, this will make your man absolutely scream with excitement as he tries it on. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The 3 most amazing cuff bracelets for men that you have ever heard anyone describe how to make. If you make all 3 of these, then you've hit the triple crown, and you can pretty much get the attention of any man in the world to pretty much come and do your bidding. So, put some comments. Haha, tell me what I missed. Probably a lot of stuff. Play around. You should have fun with it. Make a whole bunch. Make some that you think messed up. Oh, and I'm scared to show you this whole mess, but please get yourself a little plastic case to hold all your little pieces. Otherwise, they will start to look like this table very quickly, and you don't want that. Now, granted, I'm going to clean this all up, but all these little interchangeable pieces start getting mixed in together, and then you don't know which is which and what's what, so that's another thing to invest in. But overall, you can make some really cool men's leather bracelets for like 30 bucks. That's 30 bucks once you have all the tools, maybe 35, maybe 40, but then you can knock out like 30 bracelets. So basically you paid like $1 a bracelet and you could sell them for way more than that. All right, you guys are awesome. See you next time.